Hey, everybody, and welcome to Three Mistakes in Relationships webinar. My name is Eugina, and I'm an international pleasure and intimacy coach. I typically help singles to start dating with confidence and create more love, more pleasure, more intimacy by unleashing their true desires. Really believe in my work, especially seeing my clients get incredible results. So today we are having webinar, an interactive webinar. Three main mistakes I see people do in their relationships. And I was no stranger to those mistakes either. And today we have a really interactive group here. So we have people from UK, Saudi Arabia, Canada, Cairo. Oh my gosh, it's so beautiful. And thanks for everyone for tuning in. And yeah, and for those of you who's watching on replay. So without further ado, I would love to dive into the content. But before we do that, I'd love to share a little bit about myself because some of you know me really well and some of you don't know me at all. So my name is Eugina, and I've been a pleasure and intimacy coach for the past 3 years. And I worked with hundreds of people in small groups, in a bigger groups, individuals and couples. And what brought me to this work is my own relationships. All I did in my life, I was looking for love, yet somehow I was sabotaging myself every single time I would meet somebody. It was it was to the point that every time when I would meet a guy I like, I would find myself brokenhearted. Like I would find myself in a situation where, some drama happens or something unexplainable would happen. And I could never understand what is happening. So I kept going through life, almost giving up on love when it was the main thing that I ever wanted in my life. So I started my own journey of healing, and I have realized that actually, in one of my last relationships, I have realized like, oh my God, all of my relationships look the same, somewhat the same. So maybe that's not them. Maybe that's me, because I was so quick to blame other people, like my lovers, my partners at the time, for being non-communicative, for being a certain way, for doing wrong to me, for breaking my heart. But I completely ignored the fact that I've played a vital role in these relationships, right? So I come from a background of abusive relationships. My parents have been alcoholics when I was growing up. And violence at home has been like everyday situation, right? It's like my parents would fight, would drink. So I had no really healthy examples of relationships. I didn't know what healthy relationship is, because all around me there was violence, there was a lack of respect, there was like a really crazy place to live in, that no kids should see anything that I have seen. And I'm not saying that I'm the only one. I'm pretty sure that quite a lot of you have experienced some sort of trauma, and some of you may not. And I just want to make sure that trauma is not necessarily is like big massive drama, big massive thing. Trauma is strong emotional release that have locks into your body, an emotional response to uh, emotional situation, like, or a high emotional situation. And this what happens when our body locks in that response. um, most of the time we don't have a choice there, you know, so we react in a certain way in a similar emotional situation. And usually that reaction is not very um, productive because we locked this in when we were kids before 10 years old. And you know, when we become an adult, that reaction is not necessarily um, very um, how would I want to say this, not very up to date, you know, because you think in quite differently when you're a child to when you're an adult, right? So I got fascinated about love and relationships, and my fascination was about that we learn about everything at school. We learn maths, we learn literature, languages, but we never learn about our relationships, and we spend in relationships most of our lives. So, for example, I didn't know how to interact with men in the way, like, not believing that they don't want to hurt me. And simple as that, I really believed that men want to hurt me. And it hasn't been a really productive reality for myself because all I kept drawing to myself is men who want to hurt me. But we will get into that a bit later. So I have discovered so many skills and tools that I have been able to turn my own personal life around and see the blessings in every situations, you know, and I've been able to share my skills and tools with people around the world and support and empower women and men around the world in their journeys, in their relationships. And many of my clients have started new relationships, moved in with their partners, had babies, you know, planning to get married, started dating with confidence. And it's like all the beautiful things that people really wanted to do, they really started doing them. So today, I would love to share with you the three main things that I see people do in their relationships that doesn't actually work, right? And by addressing those three things, only after watching this webinar, you will be able to implement in your life, in your relationships, whether that's with your friends, family, or lovers, or partners, or husbands, wives, you know, and so on and so forth. I'm not saying that it's going to be simple or easy, but you will have knowledge and awareness of what is needed to create sustainable, long-lasting relationships that are based on your truth and your desires and your self-expression without you having to compromise yourself. And I think that uh, it's really important because in my experience, lots of my clients and myself in the past have been trying to change and adapt myself to another person's needs, wants, and desires, when actually it was not sustainable long term for myself. Like when I pretend to be somebody else who I'm not, and trying to appear to be a certain way, you know, putting up the show for a long time is not sustainable at all. So, are you ready to begin this webinar? So comment yes in a chat box, and I would absolutely love, love, love to take you on this journey. But only if you're ready, right? Oh, I can see. Yes, yes. Amazing, amazing, amazing. Yes, 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 yes. Incredible, incredible, incredible. Woo, awesome stuff. So, the mistake number one that people are making. Are you ready for it? It's the juicy one, right? So, it is assumptions. We are so busy to assume things that we actually lose track of reality. Assumptions, something that is created in a lack of communication. Because what happens very often when we are going into relationship, we assume that we know what the other person gonna say or do or create, you know, based on what happened in our past, and especially if some of us are already in a relationship, we kind of assume, oh yeah, I know when you do this thing, you know, it just like triggers the same on and on and on and over and over and over patterns, right? Like one of my clients um, speaking to her husband, and like she says, like when he does this thing, it just makes me feel this way, and it's like that's it. I already know that from there, I don't want to talk to him. And this happens so many. It's like the assumption of, it's like, yeah, I know you, I know what you're doing, but what happens in that moment is lack of communication, because we are so quick to assume that we know what the other person is thinking, that the other person is wanting, that we actually forgetting to ask them, because we're bringing our past into our future, right? That we are so busy being caught up in our story that we don't even try to communicate how we feel, what we feel. T says true. Yeah, absolutely true, you know. And what it actually does, it causes the resentment. It causes the resentment. So um, the more you assume that you know what the other person does or thinks or how they're gonna react, the more you setting yourself up for disconnection and resentment. This is for sure, because we also knowing the other person that we actually forget to really get to know them, because you know, especially over a period of time, when you learn about each other, you um, get to know some of the ways of being of that person. And fair enough, like very often it could be true, but then there is such thing as growth, you know, because nothing on this earth stays still and the same. You either growing or you dying, and this is how life works. So every time before you're going to assume anything in the future, I would really love to invite you to check in with yourself and pause and stop and actually acknowledge, what are you feeling right now? When have you been feeling this way before? What causes you feeling that way? So that you can actually make a decision based on what is true in that moment, not on the what happened in the past or prediction and assumptions of the future. Because what happens is when you assume things, you just set yourself up for resentment and disappointment. And I just want to remind you of that. It's not easy, because like when you are in the situation and you're triggered and you um, like been interacting with that person, whether that's your family, your lover, your friends, you know, it's like, oh yeah, I know my friend, they act this way, you know, or like let's say some of your dating, and when you meet a new person, and you may think to yourself, oh yeah, I've been here before, I know this would happen. So there, what happens, the belief system is triggered that something about men, let's say, because like I had beliefs around men, right, that all men want to hurt me. So, and I was bringing that into my reality. So it's like maybe this is the opportunity for you to check in with your beliefs. What are your beliefs there? And what are your stories you telling yourself? What are the assumptions that you have? And then to check in with yourself and see, it's like, is this actually true? Is this actually true? Because it doesn't have to be necessarily true, but we could believe that so much in ourselves that we create that reality and it becomes true, right? Does this make sense? um, so see, since sometimes I decide not to assume but ends up to react directly. I don't know why. So maybe that is your reaction. So we have responses like fight, flight, and freeze, right? So any of that, you know, could be your response and reaction. And many people attack before, you know, to protect themselves from the attack. So that could be the case, but you never know. But that could be your emotional response, that I have to act right now, instead of like taking time, thinking to yourself, okay, what works? You know, it's like, let me just check in with myself. How do I feel? Am I assuming that this person is attacking, or or like, how would that work? So Iman, what should we do instead of assuming? So this is what you do. You stop, you take a deep breath in, and you check in with yourself. What am I doing here? Am I assuming that this is what is going to happen? Am I assuming that I know what this person thinks? Am I assuming that this person gonna tell me what I think they're gonna tell me? Am I assuming that I am in this situation because of like whatever reasons? It's like, am I assuming that I'm going to have my heart broken? Am I assuming that this person is going to hurt me? Am I assuming that this relationship is going to... Oh, I think my internet has been playing up slightly. So pardon me if you uh, if it froze for a bit, but yes, let's carry on. So yeah, I hope that answers that question. So does this make sense so far? Give me a yes if it does, and give me a no if it doesn't. This is so exciting. Okay, yes. Yes. Okay, this is so beautiful. So beautiful. So are you ready for the point number 2? Oh my gosh, amazing. You guys are so ready. I love it. I really love it. So the point number 2, the mistake number 2 is lack of boundaries. Lack of boundaries. And and this is one of the major mistakes people make in their relationship. And I will tell you right now, it's nobody's fault. It's nobody's fault. When we were growing up, like in my family in particular, there was very little boundaries. In fact, there was none. You know, in fact, there was no boundaries whatsoever. So people didn't know how to respect each other's boundaries. There was so little boundaries, or like non-existent boundaries, that there was no lock on my bathroom door when I was growing up. So every time I would have a bath, or something like that, my mom just would walk in whenever she feels like into the bath, and like really interfere with my time, you know, with my privacy. And as a growing up, when you just experience constant crossing of boundaries, you just assume that this is the way it is, and you don't question it. Well, most people don't question it. People just assume that it's okay to live their life without actually having any boundaries enforced, because we have never experienced that, right? And what happens is, like, you see your parents are crossing each other's boundaries all the time. They do things to upset each other, and then you just decide for yourself that this is how relationship work. And when you decide for yourself that this is how relationship work, you go out in the world when you're growing up and you're creating the relationships most of the time that your parents have created, because you acting on the model that are run by your family, you know, by your parents, or like representatives of your parents. You see how people interact with one another, you see how people connect with one another, and then you go and you recreate what you have observed. So lack of boundaries is one of the main things that actually keeps relationship at the point where people are settling. This is like one of the biggest things, you know, people are settling, and especially women are settling. I mean, lots of men are settling also, and lack of self-expression comes with that too, you know. And I think the communication is an ongoing theme throughout this webinar, because like majority, it's like, as well as the assumptions, when we assume things, we don't say how we feel at the time. And when we don't express our boundaries, we don't say how we feel and what is important to us, and settling for less. So settling, Elisa is asking, what is settling? Settling, if, okay, my favorite example of this would be when you want the whole cake, but you just, and someone gonna tell you, it's like, oh, I don't have a whole cake, or they don't even tell you that they don't have a whole cake, but they give you some crumbs of what you want. That would be settling. And you're like, oh, these are crumbs, okay. So settling is something that, you know, you accept less than you want, you accept less than you desire, you accept less than what is important to you. You know what I mean? That you are accepting something that doesn't fulfill your appetite, doesn't fulfill your desires, doesn't fulfill any of you, anything in you. Does this make sense? So yes, what happens here? Lack of boundaries is, again, fear of self-expression, and fear of, like, the main thing that I come across when expressing the boundaries. It's like, oh, but what if they're gonna think of me that I'm too demanding? This is one of the main things. What if they're gonna think that I'm a bitch? Oh, what if they're gonna think that I'm this way? What if they're gonna think that I'm that way? You know what I mean? And this becomes like um, a theme that you don't express what you actually okay and not okay with, and that creates a massive gap for you accepting something that you are not happy with. Like, I will tell you, like, lots of my clients that I work with, they are absolutely not okay with expressing their desires because of fear of rejection. And this is like so normal, you know. It's like we are so scared to say, it's like, hey, this doesn't work for me, and I want more than that, you know. And these things are like, don't work for me. Like, for example, um, authentic communication, right? When you in like dating or relationships, and you don't actually express, like, you leave things to assume that, let's say you want a monogamous relationship, but then like this what was a recurrent theme in my life in the past, right? That where I would want a monogamous relationship, but I could actually never speak this up because I had a fear that I'm too demanding or that I would appear to look jealous, you know, where actually all I wanted to be with this one person and I didn't want anything else, you know, I didn't want to play with many people and stuff like that. So, but because I had fear of appearing jealous or demanding or being rejected for what I want, maybe because you know they didn't want the same thing, or like, you know, again, fear of looking good, oh, fear of avoiding looking bad, and like really portray myself to look good. That has been a massive massive thing. And what I used to do, I used to hurt myself all the time because I would go out of my way to like actually encourage my lover at the time to flirt with that girl, because I'm not jealous. What are you talking about? You know what I mean? I was like, no way this is happening. You know, it's like, I'm not jealous. Go and flirt with this girl and I just gonna be here. When actually, in fact, that I've been dying inside. Like I've been dying inside. I so wanted to for him to choose me over everybody else. So wanted for him to choose me over everybody else. And yet I didn't have the courage to vocalize that. I didn't have the courage to vocalize what is acceptable for me and what isn't acceptable for me. And I can see that so many people do these mistakes in their relationships, right? That I can see some of the clients that I'm working with are choosing not to have relationships or like any sort of interaction with the person they like and enjoy, because first of all they bring assumptions into their relationships, and then they just don't know how to express their boundaries. So like, for example, one of my clients, she wants to have only casual relationship, sexual relationship with her exes, or like someone like who is still her friend, but it's like she just wants to have only sexual relationship with them. She doesn't want to be in a like full-on relationship with them. And what she does, she still really wants it, but she chooses not to go there, because she just says it's like, well, but then we're gonna act like boyfriend and girlfriend and like everything. So um, forgetting that all it takes is to have the one conversation where you actually express what is important to you, what um, what is absolutely must haves and absolutely no go for you in that kind of setting, you know. And people are struggling to express themselves that way, because what happens, it is really 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 vulnerable to express your boundaries, because so many people feel that they will appear to be a certain way, like needy, like jealous, like, oh, but I have this persona of independent woman. What do you mean that I want monogamous or non-monogamous relationship with you? It's like, you know, because your ego has to actually be put aside when you expressing that, and you have to be open for negotiation, because like the truth is that there are many times when your boundaries could be or would be absolutely met, yet it is very important to leave room for negotiation in case that there are some adjustments to be made. Because what happens, you have to take in consideration other person's boundaries also. other person's boundaries also. And this is so, so important, because like while your boundaries have to be honored, the other person's boundaries has to be honored also. And sometimes there could be some adjustments to be made to actually fit this together. Does this make sense? So T says, I love this example. Amazing. Yes. So now every time, it's like I am creating a connection with somebody, like a personal, loving connection with somebody. Um, uh, the boundaries is one of the main things we discuss right away, because I will tell you right now, um, leaving things to chance and just assume that um, you know we are exclusive when we actually haven't had a conversation about that. um, I will tell you this, I have suffered a lot based on these assumptions and lack of boundaries, right? It's like when I'm assuming that we're seeing only each other, and I actually don't know. It takes a lot of my mental space, it takes a lot of my energy, and actually it's wasted because I end up suffering after that, right? Because there is no clarity. Because there is no clarity. And if you are in the relationship already, there is never too late to share your boundaries. And another thing, when you have created the boundaries, it doesn't mean that they have to stay till the rest of your life like that. There's on like absolutely, absolutely uh, important to revisit those boundaries every so often, like once a week, once a month, like whenever that is, so that you actually know what works, what doesn't, and what can be adjusted, right? Because like we grow, like I said, if we don't grow, we die. And it's like we create new experiences, we gather new knowledge, we gather new information, and based on that information and knowledge and your growth, you can also adjust your boundaries. Right? Does this make sense? I can see that Zaklina says absolutely important point. Absolutely, absolutely. Boundaries, it is like a life changing, um, incredible gifts that we have and that are very accessible to us right now. Okay, so I can see amazing. Yes, 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 great stuff. So the final point, the last point, is expressing our desires. It's expressing our desires. So this is one of my most favorite points, right? And yet, um, expressing my desires, even though I teach this for many years now, every time when I'm expressing my true and authentic desire, it feels like, oh my God, really, really? It takes a lot of courage. I will tell you right now, it takes a lot, a lot, a lot of courage. So, just like expressing your boundaries, your ego has to absolutely be on the side on this one, right? Because like expressing your desires, it's an egoless communication where you give an other person the opportunity to give you what you want, right? And understanding that it could be yes or a no, it's a massive thing, like a massive thing. Because, you know, when you express what you really want, and when you give that opportunity to another person. And like most of us expressing our desires, but like a heart's desires, in a way that we apologize for it. Like we don't want to make people like inconvenient bother, you know. And this is the perception that we are taught most of the time, that when I say what I want, I just appear to look needy, I just appear, you know, um, to be inconvenient. Oh, but you know, they don't want to give me what I want. Or and we again bring all these assumptions into our reality, where in the whole complete honesty, what happens, people, men, women, whoever, want to give us what we really desire. They want that. Like I keep teaching in my in my work that men love to serve, and men do love to serve, because there is nothing better for a man to see a smile of satisfaction on his woman's face, knowing that he has provided and created that for her. There is no better reward for him, right? And I actually been interviewing men on this, and it's like I will tell you from personal knowing, personal experience, that it's like every single time when I'm asking even a friend of mine to pass me um, something, you know, from the table. I was running a retreat a couple of years ago, and it was four of us. It was me and my three colleagues, and we've been having like lunch or breakfast, like when we are at the table, and I just would ask my colleague to pass me a ketchup or something, and he would be like, oh my god, of course I want to give you a ketchup, you know. And it's like, of course I will give you anything, what else can I give you, just ask me, just ask me, you know. And this is such an incredible way, you know, when you are getting turned on about your ask. Because like I will tell you right now, when you express your desire and it comes from the place of turn on, people like just want to give you what you want, always, 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 always. Because there is no greater pleasure in life in seeing an absolute satisfaction on your loved one's face, whether that's your friend, your family, your lover, especially your lover. When you just see that, oh my god, I just gave them this thing and they're so happy, you know. And oh, this is exciting. And I will tell you that uh, asking is really, um, there is a massive, massive vulnerability when you asking. Like, my desire is to have a family and to have kids, and I I have been actually quite like, it's a very vulnerable thing, right, to say to your lover, especially when you get to know each other. And then it is so important to know that, because like, it is so important to know where you're going. Are you compatible? Do you want the same things? Is it going to work? And when you are connected by the same desire, it gives you direction to navigate your relationship to the same way, right? It gives you the opportunity to navigate your relationship into the same direction. So what happens here? It's like, if you don't express that and you just like leave that for assumption that it may or may not work out, that you may or may not want the same things, and then later on in life you realize actually sometime down the line that you want completely different things. Like for example, if for you is so important to get married and have kids, and for your lover it is like absolutely not important, and in fact they don't even want to have kids, when you uh, create your relationship, I think that this is one of the main factors, right? It's like, and of course things change and people change and people's perceptions change, yet is it really worth for you to um, create a chance and possibility that um, that your desire might not be fulfilled, or you would settle for less? Like, I know women who are settling for um, not having children because their man doesn't want to have kids, right? So their desire to becoming a mother is kind of becomes secondary because they choose to go with the man's desires. And I'm not saying that every woman wants to have kids, because not every woman wants to have a kid, but an example of that would be that, right? And all of this can be avoided when you having the conversation in the beginning to actually create clarity. This is what I want, this is where I'm going, and this is what I intend to create in my life. Are you with me, or are you not? Like, how is this going to work for us? You know, and if it does, so let's put some boundaries here. So, and this is what I was saying about like having a cake, you know, example of the cake, because um, my desires are really big. I want the whole cake. I want my clients to have the whole cake, and often my clients do want the whole cake. And so many are settling just for the crumbs. It's like, oh, I'm gonna give you a piece of that cake, and yeah, just be happy with that kind of thing. And some settling for the piece of the cake, and some don't, you know. And um, when you're settling for the piece of the cake, there is an ongoing sensation that your life, your desires are not fulfilled. And can you really live with yourself and being fully satisfied and fully nourished, knowing that your desire is not fulfilled? Or would you rather um, explore other cakes? You know, I'm just saying. Does this make sense? So let me see what's happening here. Absolutely. And you're able to attract the right person when you feel and express your true desire. Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's see. Iman is asking, how did you set up your boundaries the first time? Um, so how do you set up boundaries the first time is that you have a conversation. You have a conversation. And, you know, depending on the situation, like what I personally do is I ask, where do you see our connection is going? Do you want to see other people? Do you not? You know, let's create some clarity here. Let's talk about this. And you know what? It's vulnerable every single time. It's vulnerable. And you know, if it wouldn't be vulnerable, it probably wouldn't be so important. So this is what I would like to say. It's like, it's so important that you have this conversation and that it feels real and authentic, and where you share your heart, because it's not all about looking good and avoiding looking bad and looking cool and avoiding looking needy and all of that. um, so this is your perception. How do you see yourself? So when you see yourself as oh, having this conversation is needy, there is a problem. Then most likely you will create that energy. And if you see yourself where you actually opening up this space for vulnerability and come up with like, hey, listen, I want to have this conversation with you to create clarity. I want to create clarity so that we both know where we stand, so that we both know what is happening, you know, for us, that I can show up here in the way that feels good to me. Because if you're showing up in this relationship thinking that, you know, oh, what if this person sees somebody else? Oh, but I'm not sure, you know, and if you having that energy, it's like it essentially takes away from your happiness, because there's a part of your mental space is occupied with what ifs. So when you have that conversation, you just like really giving yourself the opportunity of creating more space for love. This is what it is. You're creating more space for love. And the sooner you're going to see it that way, the sooner you're going to realize that, hey, this works for me. This is great. This is amazing. I can show up in my connection, in my relationship fully, and not worry about, you know, what ifs, because we have discussed this, because my mind can rest now, because this person knows if, you know, like he is going to go off and do something inauthentic, you know, that it's gonna hurt me. And like, let's be honest, most of the people, they don't want to hurt other people. They don't want to do it intentionally anyway. Of course some end up doing that, there's no doubt about it, but in the same time, um, it is what it is. So Iman is asking, what to do if you show vulnerability and the other person doesn't? Well, so what? You're doing that not for them, you're doing that for yourself. You're vulnerable for yourself, not for them. And the sooner you're gonna realize that you living your life for yourself and not for others, the sooner you actually gonna do things based on what is true to you. And I will tell you, I will give you this example, right? I used to work in reception in one of the major law firms, like global law firms. So every morning I would say hi and bye to like hundreds of people, right? And very often I would say hi and people would not respond to me. And I would say like, good morning, hi, good afternoon, you know, and people just would like blank me and not respond to me. So one day my colleague went to ask me to, and actually she said to me, Eugina, but why you keep on saying hi to those people, you know, if they're ignoring you, just stop saying that. And I said to her, even then, I said to her, you know what? I'm doing that not for them. I'm doing that for myself, because this is who I am. When I say hi, I really want to say hi. And I'm doing it not to make them feel good. I'm doing that because it makes me feel good. Right? So I want for you to also, my desire is for you to also realize, when you do something in life, do it for yourself. Don't do it to please other people, even though the reward is massive, you know. But when you do things because you really want to do things, that creates like a super incredible connection. Because first of all, like whether they do it or not, it doesn't really matter, because you're doing it for yourself. You're making yourself happy. Does this make sense? Um, so just a quick recap. We have like only 8 minutes left. So quick recap here. So, okay, so this is so precious. Yes, fantastic, fantastic. I'm so happy you found this valuable. So, quick recap. We have addressed 3 mistakes people do in relationships, right? Um, and if any of this resonates with you, I would absolutely love for you. Um, um, Reach out to me. Most of you know me. Most of I probably worked with most of you. Um, So if there are any questions you have right now, please message me, private message me. You know, if some messages are popping up for you later. Also, just a quick reminder that I am starting the 8-week program, 8-week course on the 30th of May, and I would love for you to join me. I would absolutely love for you to join me. But a quick recap is that we have covered 3 mistakes people create in relationships. So first one is assumptions. The other one is lack of boundaries. And the third one is lack of expressing our desires. Okay. So Maria says, thanks, Eugina. I feel things are finally landing on me. This is massive, Maria. Massive, massive, massive. I'm so, so happy to hear that. And I will tell you what, we're going to be going much, much deeper into that on an 8-week program that begins on 30th. And I know you're joining me, and I'm super excited to see you there and take you on this journey, because I feel that, you know, when we focusing so much on our lives and our works and our self-development and everything, relationships very, very often are completely overlooked. So, and like, let's be honest, relationships is one of the main source of fulfillment for us. You know, when we are happy in our love life, in our in our relationships with people that we love, it creates all the difference in our life. So I would absolutely love to share with you all that I know, so that you can create the difference, the positive, long-lasting change in your life, because I know how fulfilling that is. I know how that feels to actually feel empowered by who you are and show up in every situation, in every relationship as yourself without having to apologize for your dreams and desires. I know what it's like to express your boundaries, like when I'm expressing my boundaries, and I know what does it feel like when your boundaries are constantly crossed. And I wouldn't want uh, for anyone to live in a space where they feel miserable because someone is disrespecting them, when actually in the whole reality we create the situations for people, you know, do things that they do for us. I just want you to really notice that, because they really showing us, is there something that you're settling for, or is there something you're not expressing fully, or there is something, you know, for you to actually pay attention to. So it is really, really important that you pay attention to your ways of being. So as a reminder to you again, I would love to say, when you find in yourself an emotional situation, just stop, breathe, and then really think, is this the response I want to create right now? Or other response would be more useful in this situation? So this is it from me for today. I'm so, so happy to see you all here. Let me know if you have got any questions. Do you have any questions now? Maybe I can answer. We have got a few minutes left. So Jacqueline said, by the time you learn to set boundaries, it feels so amazingly liberating. You figure out that it's so much easier to speak your truth. Absolutely, absolutely. So much easier. And then you just know what to expect, you know. And I can tell you, like, when I'm expressed my boundaries with my lover, and it has been super vulnerable, and because, you know, because there is so much love, and it's like, oh my god, it's going to be awkward, you know. So it is awkward, especially at first. It is awkward because when the feelings are involved, you know. So Lisa says, I do not hear you now. I'm hoping you can hear me now. Oh, hello, hello, hello. Says cannot hear me. So yeah, so when you experience feelings for somebody, like there is no logic, there is no, it's like, yeah, let's do boom 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 and everything just happens. What happens when the feelings are involved? We all become like, oh my god, is this okay, is this not, and it's like, no matter how many courses you've done, how much education you have, it's like we all still are becoming like little children, like teenagers, because this what happens. Feelings, and especially love, does this to people. All right, so I can see that the sound has gone. This is why I'm sending you all lots of love. I love you all, and take care for now. Bye.